Yeah. Surprise, a little different than you're used to. Yeah. Dropping these bars on YouTube, knowledge I introduce you. Yeah. We chasing this money like it's the prize, it's the voodoo. Fugazi, fugazi, it's just a lie we buying into. We need some cars on deck. Get the rollies, get the moe, all the Mars on deck.
All right, good evening, everyone. What's going on? How's it going? It's weird weather. I've been indoors all day, so I've not been able to enjoy. It's 26 degrees where I am right now, but because obviously we haven't done one of these on a Sunday for a while, I thought I'd jump on and we can get this going. So a finance clinic where we can answer some of your questions. So I'm going to put on the clock. I don't really know how long to put on the clock, to be honest. It's going to be heavily dependent on you guys and how many questions we get, how much interaction we get. But ultimately, this is a chance for you to answer any questions that you might have, be it across interest rates, mortgages, investment, savings, whatever it might be. Anything across personal finance, you can ask me, and I will attempt to provide as much value as I possibly can in the time that we have here together this Sunday evening. It is a little bit later than I normally do them. I normally do them earlier around about 6, 7 o'clock, but I've been busy throughout today pretty much, and it's a busy week ahead. So let's have a look and see who we have in the chat. Kahinde, how you doing? Welcome. Good to see you here. Right, okay. So let me give this, I'm going to give this half an hour to begin with, first and foremost. And then if we get more questions beyond that, I'll maybe allocate a little bit more time to this session as well. But like I said, put your questions in the comments and I will try my best to get round to them individually. And we can try and provide a little bit of value. I do have a really important podcast episode going out tomorrow morning. So it will be on Spotify, Google, Apple, all of the good podcast outlets tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. On YouTube, it's going to be here at 12 in the afternoon. So please go and watch that because HMRC are plotting to tax ISAs. It doesn't affect all ISAs. It affects a specific kind of ISA. So there's a bit more information in the podcast tomorrow morning. I will then perhaps do a little bit of a follow-up midweek or so, depending on where I am, because I'm sure that what they're trying to use here is, it's an old piece of legislation and it's all about wording. It's very, very ambiguous, basically. So whether or not they're going to be able to enforce this, I don't know. But they're already talking about the fact that, capital gains tax are going to have to be paid and possible fines moving forward. So there'll be more information on that on the podcast tomorrow morning. So make sure you pick that up and give that a bit of a listen. 911 Frankenstein. Good evening, Pete. Quick question. I have just secured a 5-year repayment mortgage at 5.1%. Do you think that's okay? Or do you think I should wait to see if they drop? What's your loan to value, mate? Can you type in your loan to value into the chat really quickly? Because I didn't get time to do that this week, but Halifax reduced their rates on Friday, and I think a number of providers also did the same last week. They've been kiboshed a little bit because bond gilts, the yields have kind of moved because of petrol prices, so it kind of kiboshed their efforts in that regard a little bit. But there are some rates now for first-time buyers that I think are now 4%. So have you checked the market just to see what else is out there? Because 5.1 does sound good, but depending on loan to value, 79% loan to value. Okay, so 79% loan to value, mate, I would try and have a look and see if you can get something with a 4 in front. That's what I would do. Are you remortgaging a first-time buyer? I mean, it doesn't really matter either way. A 78%, 79% loan to value should mean that you should get something hopefully with a 4 in front. So it might be worthwhile. Just do a last minute recce. See what's available. You might be able to find something that's a little bit more conducive that will have a 4 in front of it, in opposed to a 5. But every little bit helps in this in these instances. And just a reminder there from Verde, thank you very much for reminding us on this. I just smashed my like button. I'm also enjoying the program. Thank you. So if you do get value from this, please ensure you smash the like button. It just means that other people who may be looking for answers to questions that you ask or people ask on this live also get pushed this video by the YouTube algorithm. It's a very, very small thing, but it does make a huge, huge difference. So if you can do that, that will be absolutely amazing. Thank you very much in advance. Kahindes is saying, I've been considering whether to obtain a 1 or 2 year fixed cash ISA. 5.5 for 1 year, 5.3 for 2 years, but uncertain on what is the best choice. Okay, good question. Do you need the do you envisage that you're going to need the money before the 2 year term runs out? Because if not, then 2 years will be good. I mean, oftentimes, and this isn't always kind of possible, but oftentimes what you want to see is, for the extra 1 year, you want to see maybe a 0.5% difference. But because obviously with the way interest rates are at the moment, it's hard. And one of the things that you have to bear in mind is you're going for a fixed rate. So whether you go 1 year or not, rates might be better, right? Rates might not be better. You got to be happy with that. Same thing if you go for 2 years, only it's a little bit exacerbated 2 years, right? So as long as you don't need access to the money before that 2 year period, and you're happy with a 5.3% interest rate, then by all means do that. But if you think, well, actually things might change, I might need a little bit of access to the cash, then you might want to go for a 1 year. Accessibility and your personal circumstances are generally the main deciding factors as to whether or not a 1 or 2 year fixed is best. But if you're in a position where financially you're okay, you don't need access to the money, you just want to prioritize getting the best rate possible right now, then by all means, the 2 year fixed rate. Just bear in mind, though, at this point in time, we are supposed to have at least one more bank rate increase by the end of the year. And if that does happen, obviously what that means is that the rate that you secure at 5.1 and 5.3 may not be the best at the time. But that's the risk that you've got to take in these kind of decisions, right? The idea is, are you happy? As long as you're happy, that's the most important thing. Kind of saying, I expect to use the limit, but uncertain if interest rates are likely to be higher next October. That's the $1 million question, and that's why I wish that I had a crystal ball to be able to kind of be definitive, but we don't know. They're saying interest rates are going to be higher for longer, but what that means and how long that is going to be for, I don't know. There is just no way of telling at this point in time. It is possible that if we do see a 0.5% interest rate hike in, I don't know, this quarter or in Q4, it is possible that we see the rates plateau at 5.5% for, all of next year. We just don't know at this point in time. And I'm just going to see if I can actually, I should have brought this up before I started this live, but I didn't. Let me just have a look and see what the forecasts are actually saying. And if I can share the screen with you, kind of see. I don't know whether they would have changed or not, if I'm completely honest, because there's a lot of here we go. Right. Bear me 1 second while I set this up. 1 sec. Where am I going? Where am I going? Where am I going? I want forecasts. Where are they? They changed this. Our countries. There we go. And we want to go United Kingdom. What are we saying? What are we saying? What are we saying? Interest rates. Okay, interesting. All right. They've changed the way this looks. They've changed the periphery on this. Sorry, guys. 1 second. I want to get this up so that I can just show you guys what we're seeing. Why is this? Why does it look different? Okay, this is really annoying. This is very, very annoying. I don't know when they've actually changed this over. It looks very different. But for what I can see here, I can't see the forecast. The forecast is what I'm looking for. 1 sec. I should have been more organized before I actually set this up. But let's have a look and see what I can find on here. Okay, there we go. That's much, much better. Okay. All right. So have a look at this because this has changed since we last had a look at this. And it feels like we looked at this a month ago, but it has now changed quite a bit. So let me just bring this up and you guys can see what I'm looking at. Okay. Just make sure that this is right. All right. Okay, cool. So hopefully you can see this right here. Okay. So this is the forecast right here. So if you recall, about a month ago, we were anticipating that there was going to be a rate hike, one additional rate hike to 5.5%. And we were going to see kind of like a plateau effect of interest rates at 5.5%. Then it was going to drop to 5.25 in Q2 2024. Now, this has been revised, this has been changed. So, what we're now seeing here is, according to this, no further interest rate hike this year. So in Q4, the goal is to keep interest rates at 5.25%. And that's going to carry all the way through to Q2 2024 with interest rates due to come down in Q3 of 24. Now, Kainde, there is no way of really knowing what's going to happen this time next year. So this time next year will be on the cusp of Q4, so October. So a year from now, this is suggesting that interest rates are still going to be at 5% if all things go to plan. But obviously, this is a forecast. The forecasts have been wrong quite a bit. But if you use this as some kind of maybe measurement to kind of, I guess, to base your decision on, it gives you at least a little bit of an insight, but I wouldn't bank on it. But the chances are we're still going to be pretty high on interest rates. And that would mean to me that we're not going to see sub 5 interest rates until 2025, which is pretty scary to think about when you consider mortgages that are going to start maturing all the way through 2024. I was at a mortgage protection conference earlier this week where I did a keynote speak. And I think they said it was like 1.8 trillion pounds or 1.8 billion. 1 second. I've got the number written down here in my notepad. It was 1.8 billion pounds. Where was it? Yeah, 1.8 billion pounds of mortgages, worth of mortgages coming off fixed rates in 2024 alone. That's a lot of money. And a lot of households are going to feel the shock of the fact that they're going to go from a 1% to a what, 4-5% rate. So yeah, there is no crystal ball, but that gives you an indication at least to go by. Telinator, how you doing? Welcome, welcome. Happy Sunday indeed. Mel's is saying here, hey Pete, meant to clarify, I just started an access to uni STEM course with Open Uni. Think I'm going for a BA in accountancy. Any thoughts? Listen, man. How do you feel about it? I mean, I don't know enough about you, your personal circumstances, really, to be able to give any kind of like verdict on whether it's going to be good for you or not. I know, contrary to what social media may say about university, I wish that I'd gone to university. I really, really do. I wish that I'd gone to university. I wouldn't be doing this, that's for sure, because I was going to study medicine. The whole plan was to be a neurosurgeon or a surgeon of some kind. So I wish that I'd gone to uni. I just couldn't afford it. And so I think there's a lot of positives that you get from university. You know, you get definitely the ability to connect with people that will help you later on during a career. And you know, some people say you may not use that specific degree in your career. Well, that's entirely down to you and circumstances to a certain extent. But I wish that I went to uni. I really, really do. I wish that I had the time and the resources to be able to build those kind of relationships with people, get a peer circle together. I would be doing something very, very different to now. But I would have been a surgeon, and surgeons do all right. But that's just my view. I think the key thing here is, are you happy with it? And I think if you do have any doubts as to whether or not it's something that is for you or not, that's really where you should maybe sit down and try and find out where the doubt comes from. The rhetoric and I guess the points that a lot of people give these days is the fact that it's a lot of debt to incur and to carry for a degree that you might not use. And that is true to a certain extent, but it depends entirely on what you're studying. If I was, for example, for me, I was going to be a surgeon. I had to go to university for that. There is no apprenticeship that I could go to, right? So it really depends on what you're studying for and what your career plans are, what your goals are. I think a lot of people go into university not really knowing what they want to do. And it's like, I'll just do this, but knowing that they're likely going to change their mind. For me, it was never the case. I knew that, if I could go to university, I was going to do medicine, and that's what I was going to study. So that would have dictated my career path. So, are you happy with it? Is it something that you want to do? Or do you have any doubts? And if you do, just try and figure out what those doubts are and why they're there. Hope you're having a wonderful evening, chilling with Pete. Hey, listen, I'm cool. I've had a busy day today. But the weather's been nice, man. Like yesterday, the weather was absolute garbage. It was raining. Today, 26 degrees, but I've been in here. I've got my window open right now, and it's still pretty warm. So hopefully we might see some of that kind of like tomorrow. I'm going to be working, but might make sure I have a little bit time out. But really having good time this evening. Hope you're well as well. Right, if you're a first-time buyer, just wait until early 2025. Buying now will be a disaster if you need a mortgage. There is some truth in that, but I do think that, you've got to base your decision based on your own personal circumstances. If you're in a place where you hate the place that you're living at and, renting is no longer a viable option, then, you make your decision based on that. Like I said on a live last week, or was it this week? This week. Someone messaged me on Instagram saying, is it a good idea to go for this mortgage? He's managed to get a £39,000 discount on a house price. And he got a fixed rate, I think he said at 5.8. 40 grand discount. He could afford it on the repayments. The house was perfect, what he wanted. In those kind of instances, why not? Why not? Why not go for it? But ultimately, it is your decision. You could wait until 2025 because everyone's thinking that house prices are going to collapse, right? That's, I think, the bet from a lot of people. And it's funny being at this conference this week because a lot of people are saying that there's going to be a significant correction in the market, but they had one of the property agents in there that does a lot of mortgages, and they're not predicting the significant drop that a lot of people are predicting. And the reason for that they're giving is that a lot of people are looking at house values and how much they fall, but the housing market isn't predicated on that. What they're looking at is how much do homes actually get sold for. And when you look at it in that way, the reduction is still pretty small. Yes, you might say the value of a house has fallen, but nobody's selling at those reduced prices. And I've got a friend of mine who lives somewhere, she lives near Brighton, right? And her house at the minute is on the market for £450,000. And she's already given a discount on this property because she just wants to sell and maybe move elsewhere. People are offering £400,000. She goes, I'm not going to sell it for a 50 grand discount. Absolutely not. And so that's the number that you're looking at when you consider property prices falling in the actual data. If the asking price or the last sale price for an area was £200,000, what are they selling for now? They're not selling for 150,000, 125,000. They're not. They're selling for maybe, 190, 180, 175 bottom. So the reduction of what houses are selling at is what they're looking at, and they are not forecasting a huge slump. Now, does that mean they're going to be correct? No, but they deal with house purchases and house sales all the time. They do hundreds of thousands of these things every single year. That's what their data is telling them. And so you've got to kind of make that decision based on what you feel is going to be right for you and your circumstances. Not expected in 2 years, then I think you should be good with that rate, Kane Day, to be honest. If you're happy with that 5.3, then, why not? Why not? As long as you're happy with it. James is saying, how I got a loan to value 70%, 4.96%, 20 years. James, that's not the fixed period, though, is it? What's the fixed term on that? So the remainder of your mortgage for 20 years, but what's the fixed term? I know that there are there are new providers coming out that are offering fixed terms for that long, but I'm guessing that's the term of your mortgage. So that 4.96, is it a 2-year fixed rate or a 5-year fixed rate? What's the actual fixed rate term to that? That will be really, really helpful, I guess, for people to know. But 4.96, like I said, I'm seeing fixed rates now with fours in front of them, which is very, very refreshing indeed. Maybe software engineering too. I think, yeah. Look, there's good money in software engineering, tech world. There's really, really good money in those kind of areas, and so I think for sure, if you're able to get into those skills are very, very, very high in demand right now, and that's the direction of travel for the world and the global economy, really, to be honest. So yeah, I think you should be okay, mate. The thing is, are you going to enjoy it? That's the thing. Are you going to enjoy it? You're going to enjoy the journey, enjoy what you're going to learn. If you get to put it into practice, even better. Better to invest the money in stocks and shares ISA than go in for a cash ISA. 5% of 20K. Cash ISA is basically tax free unless you've used your interest allowance elsewhere. 5% of 20K is basically tax free. What? What are you talking about? 5% of 20K cash ISA is basically tax free unless you've used your interest allowance elsewhere. What interest allowance are you referring to, Ollie? All money inside an ISA is tax free. All money, not 5% of it, all money. Like within bonds, you can do you can have 5% deferred withdrawals, right? Which means that you don't have to pay tax on 5%, and you can stack those up over a period of time. And a lot of people will do that. So they have their ISAs, their pensions, they'll have loads of bonds, and they might even park their bonds offshore. So it's outside of the UK for tax purposes. And because they're allowed to take 5% each year, if they don't take it, it just stacks up. So a lot of people, in instances where I've done planning for people as a financial advisor, you stack up the 5% withdrawals, take them all in one go. And in most cases, you're able to take majority of the capital that you had in that bond anyway to complete tax-free or tax deferred. So money in an ISA is tax-free. The question of to whether or not you should use a cash ISA or a stocks and shares ISA is about accessibility. Do you need access to the money? There are times to invest in the stock market and there are times not to invest in the stock market. If you need money within 2-3 years, you should not be investing in the stock market, period. The risk is way too high. And I obviously say this all the time, but it's an important principle to understand. If you need the money in the short term, 2-3 years, maybe even 4, you should put it into a cash ISA, or at least something that is a little bit more secure where you can access it that doesn't give you any risk. So a fixed rate ISA might be great, for example, right? So a fixed rate cash ISA, which is what we're talking about here, could be perfect. But stocks and shares, yeah, it's great, but you have investment risk. And if you need access to it, like you're saying, in 2 years' time, you should definitely not be investing in the stock market. Too high a risk, in my opinion. And that's just me saying that from a professional point of view. There was a follow-up here. No need for the use of the ISA wrapper. Okay, cool. Brandon, what is Brandon saying here? Brandon, let's wait till I get this up. One sec. I'm frozen. I've got so many tabs open, and this is a little bit better since this new computer landed, but I haven't yet researched. People have been talking about I should get a mesh setup for the broadband at home, and I'm going to have a look at that next week. Hi, Pete. Thanks for speaking about stocks and shares ISA on fractional shares. If you were to make the fractional shares and whole share, would people still be affected? You can't. It's not the fact that going from fractional shares to whole shares. It's the fact that it's a fractional share. So it's the way that the money's been invested that they're saying is not a qualifying investment. There'll be more details on that in the podcast in the morning. But I don't think if you, for example, only bought a fraction of, so Tesla's at 260 today. If you bought a fraction of ISA of Tesla, for example, making up to a whole share, I don't think will help. But then I don't know because we don't know the details just yet. There's a lot more that we need to have a look at when it comes to this. So I can't give you a confident answer. From just looking at it based on what I've read and based on what I've seen, I don't think it makes any difference whether or not you make it up to a whole share or not. The simple fact is, what they're saying is buying fractional shares just the action of doing that is not allowed within an ISA wrapper. And it's very frustrating. I share my views on it in the morning, and I'll do a follow up later on this week. But yeah, Samantha, interest rates will never be below 4% again. Impossible. It will go way above 6. Israel has declared war on Palestine. Please don't buy anything. Well, you know what? It's very, very interesting as well. For me, I don't think interest rates are going to be anywhere near where we were before. And I think Samantha's right. 4%. Mm-mm. I don't think you're going to see 3% in front of things anymore, unless the lenders decide that they really want to kind of, you know, drum up mortgage business as much as possible. But the issue with that is they are still borrowing money at a certain rate, and they can't afford, no matter what happens, to essentially lend out money for less than what they're borrowing it for. They need to make a profit. So I think you're right on that one. I mean, what Israel Palestine, that's been brewing for years. That definitely means uncertainty across the global market. So I would definitely watch this space. Definitely watch this space. And what the markets don't like these kind of things. It'll be interesting to see how the markets all respond tomorrow and over the next coming days or so. But I don't think, because it's happened so suddenly, that it would have been priced in to whatever happens. I mean, it may be for the first part, but we'll be monitoring that place specifically. It's just one of those things where you got to be careful. At the end of the day, whenever you're investing, there is a risk. And war in any part of the world presents more risk in an investment portfolio. But I think when you think about the fundamentals of investing, right? As long as you've not plowed your money into individual companies that may be located in Israel or may have a connection to Israel, if you've spread your money across index funds, ETFs, which invest in, 500, 600, 1,000 companies, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine long term because you spread the risk. And one of the things that I would definitely say is a lesson from this whole fractional share thing, I talk about the fact that index funds, ETFs give you the best chance of diversification. It gives you the best available exposure to different kinds of companies, sectors, geographical regions. Back in 2020, 2021, people didn't want to hear this. Why? Because there were YouTubers saying, oh yeah, GameStop, AMC, Tesla, Amazon, talking about how much money people could make. Everyone wanted to buy individual stocks. This is where it becomes problematic. And the same thing applies in these kind of situations where, you're having wars in Israel versus Palestine. We've got Russia versus Ukraine. There's a lot of geopolitics and uncertainty across the globe. But fundamentally, if you think about the markets and why you're investing, how investing actually works, it's not about taking a gamble on one specific company or a group of 15 to 10 companies as a first time investor. That's not what it's about. If I'm being completely honest, you don't have the tools, the skills, and the data available to you to be able to make that kind of informed decision to any degree of certainty. That's just the truth. Investment houses do. JP Morgan, BlackRock, those guys do. Vanguard, those guys do. Why? Because they are plugged into the system. By the time you hear it on the news, it's gone. It's too late. It's already too late. These guys will be making investment decisions based on geopolitics, what's going on globally. So I guarantee you right now, a lot of these investment houses, and I've worked for investment houses, I've sat in meetings with fund managers, with investment managers. I've sat in those meetings. Yeah, war's not great, but they'll be looking at the companies that supply arms right now. Any company that's connected to the Israeli war efforts, supplying jets, weapons, ammunition. I don't invest in any of that stuff personally. Those companies will be looking at those and thinking, right, maybe we need to alter our position quickly, put some more money in. Because why? They know it's an investment opportunity. So it's not a case of don't buy anything, but be smart. And if you're investing in index funds and ETFs, yes, there will be some volatility. Yes, you're going to have some risk, but your risk is going to be so much more less than if you invested in a group of 15, 20 companies, really, that you couldn't do any substantive research on. So these are the times when the basics around investing become so important. the stuff that I always talk about, but it's boring. It will never get any views on YouTube because it's not sexy enough. It's not telling people how to, you know, 10x their money and make 2 grand, 3 grand, 4 grand without doing anything at all. And that's not what investing is all about. Investing is very much about the slow, methodical build up of wealth over a period of time. Why? Because you invest in companies that are integral to the way that we live our lives. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. And yes, there are going to be opportunities across time to capitalize in certain sectors, certain geographical regions. But that shouldn't mean that you ignore the companies that prop up civilization, the way we live, the things that we need as human beings. I can talk about this all day, still falls on deaf ears. So please just be mindful and please be careful. All right, let me just scan. Michael, what's going on? Michael and I were just in our peer group. Are banks restricting lending? My Virgin Money credit card is offering me balance transfer of 20.01% with 5% fee, or money transfer of 21.66 and a 5% fee. That's around 500% over a normal rate I've had before. They may be. I mean, they will have appetites of what they want to lend, for example, and then they will shape the interest rates that they have available, or they want to charge based on that as well. So potentially, yes. It's weird how some of these banks make those decisions, really, to be honest, because they will have targets. They're like, okay, we want to lend out X amount on credit card. What are the offers? And obviously they'll look at your credit score and all this kind of stuff and your credit persona. It gives them a little bit of an insight in terms of the offer. And if they've got information about you, so whether you are mortgaged, whether you have how much you have in your mortgage, they have your postcode, so they can ascertain, okay, well, houses are in that postcode are around about this price, his mortgage is this much, you got X amount in equity, his wages are this. All of that data goes into what they're going to offer you there. So what they will often do is they will offer you based on your circumstances, what they think will be good for them and your propensity to accept it based on interest rates at the time, or rates that they basically set for their lending. But sometimes they will just say, look, we've hit our target, no more, and that's it. They just they kind of close it down. So yeah. Sorted that negative blip on my credit report with help from your book and advice last week. Approved for a credit card today. Thanks again for all the help, mate. Listen, Jim, that's really that's music to my ears, mate. Thank you for that feedback, and it's good to know as well that your credit score is one of those things that I didn't quite appreciate how important it is, especially if you're trying to access debt. And I'll talk about that in the book, right? I talk about the fact that your credit score is your digital persona. It's a digital representation of all the financial choices you've made. So it's like a digital version of you walking around telling lenders whether you're good or bad. And sometimes there are certain things that do go on your file that are mistakes and you can challenge them. I learned that the hard way a long time ago. So it's good to know that little tips like that are actually helping in the real world. So thank you for that, mate. Appreciate it. I have watched Top Boy. You know what? I didn't like the way it ended. I did not like the way it felt like there wasn't something quite right. And it's like some things happen in the series, and I'm like, why would you do that? Like, you wouldn't do that. Like, Jazz, why would you steal from Sully? And like, you wouldn't do it. Like, it just didn't feel right the way it ended, but I enjoyed it, although some of it didn't make any sense. It's like just being sloppy, and you're like, anyway, it is what it is. But I binged it in the end, and I don't often binge series. Please don't take advice from someone who knows nothing about history of VL or politics. He isn't a surgeon, thank goodness for that. Samantha, you're on my stream, and if you don't like what I'm saying on my stream, then what are you doing here? One thing you don't know, and you may be new, is that I am actually a qualified financial advisor. I've been in financial services for 15 years. I've advised people as a financial advisor as well. So I don't know what your qualifications are, my friend, but you shouldn't be here talking about that kind of stuff. So you can spout all you want. That's completely fine. But I would argue that I'm more qualified than you are in this space. Or maybe you are a qualified financial advisor, which in that kind of case, it'll be great to sit down and actually debate with you. But I would encourage you, if you are in this space as a financial advisor, perhaps create your own YouTube channel and actually try to share your knowledge with followers that you garner as well. I never say anything or do anything to put people in detriment. That's always been one of the things that I'm very, very mindful of on my channel. And for people who have been following me since 2020, since this channel started, I've got over 600 videos on this channel right now. You'll see that there is a rhyme of consistency all the way through my channel. I don't sell fads. I don't sell anything. I just give people experience from my career, experience of things that I've learnt through the hard yards and making mistakes myself. It's why I have a book that is a bestseller and it's got a chapter on investing, because I'm more than qualified to speak on these topics. So if you don't like it, well, I'm not going to apologize, because obviously you've got your opinion, but you're in the wrong place, mate. So, so Samantha's saying here, house prices will fall by 35%. So, what exactly do you have an issue with what I've said? Are you talking about property prices? Because, like I said, I've been to a conference with a lot of professionals this week, and what the big organizations that deal with property prices are saying is that there will be a dip, but not as large as what a lot of people are saying on social media. I have had Charlie on this channel, who's big here on YouTube as well, who talks about property, and he thinks it's going to be a severe dip. But that's not what the data is basically saying. So you can believe that, but at the same time, there is something called confirmation bias. And I like to see both sides of the coin. So there is a narrative over here that says it's not going to be as severe, and these are the reasons why. Charlie has his narrative, and perhaps you do as well, around you think that the property prices are going to fall this much. But thus far, you've given no reasons why. So again, it's like, this is all about context, right? You can say that I don't know what I'm talking about, which is completely fine. But I gave you a reason as to why the conference that I went to this week, we're talking about big property developers who deal with buying and selling properties, like property companies. They're saying this is what the data tells us. Where's your data? It's okay for you to say that, but where's your data? And if you want to kind of elaborate in the comment section, this will be a really, really good talking point. I'm not saying that I'm right, but this is what I heard this week. And I'm not about tuning into the things that I think are right. I want to hear arguments on both sides of the coin here. So if you want to present, reasons why you think property is going to fall by 35%, and not just because someone on YouTube said so, then by all means put it in the chat and we can have a look and see what you're saying. Andy, how you doing, mate? Welcome. Good to see you here, buddy. People to sell, divorce, death, and debt. They have no choice. Then you lose your job. Okay, maybe you're just I don't know, maybe you just like doom and gloom. We don't deal with that here on the channel. Yes, we deal with, the realities of what might happen, but it is about taking charge and trying to control the controllables. That's the main thing. And no doubt people are going to be in for a very, very, very tough ride when mortgage rates start to come off their low fixed rates onto the new high rates. But that's the reality. There are things that you can do. Doesn't mean you're going to be desolate necessarily. Maybe some people will be, but we can control our controllables. Samantha's also just saying here, and I'm not one to shut anyone down here, but it feels like, Samantha, you are very passionate about your subject matter, which is great, fantastic. And if you really, like, seriously, create some content around this and like share your views. And if you do have a channel, let me know, because I'd love to check you out and see what your views are. But you're also saying here, if you can fix terms for 4.96 for 25 years, you can afford it. It's easily now and don't want to move again in the next 10 years. Go for it. I would agree with you on that for sure. I mean, there are definitely providers at this point in time. And I did a poll last year asking people if they would consider a long-term fixed rate, so like a 10-15 year fixed rate last year, and the sentiment was no, we wouldn't. that was before we saw obviously that rush of interest rate rises through the back end of last year and all the way up until what the last one here, right? So we saw, I think, it was about 6 or 7 consecutively, and I polled it about 2 months ago, and people were like, "Yeah, they would go for a long term." And you know the funny thing here is, right? They do this in the States all the time. It's very, very common in the States for them to get like a 4, 5% fixed rate mortgage, and they fix that in for 10, 15 years. And what they do is they're able to use that for cash flow because they can say, okay, for the next 10, 15 years, I know that my mortgage is going to be this. It allows them to build foundations from a financial point of view, which for us is alien because we've been in an environment where interest rates were high, but what, back in the 80s, right? Really, really high. And what we tend to see is that interest rates have kind of come down. So our history kind of dictates, well, actually, interest rates will go down. And so we remortgage every 2 to 3 years. And I spoke to an American about a week and a half ago, and they're like, "Why do you do that?" I'm like, "It's just what we do." But I would agree with you 100% here. If you could get something that you felt was a decent rate, and again, I've got a little bit of content coming out for this. I've got to tie up some loose ends around it. But if you could tie in a fixed rate of a decent fixed rate, speak properly, a decent fixed rate for a long period of time, which didn't have prohibitive um, early repayment charges, right? And gave you flexibility. So maybe you could port it, move from one house to another. I think more people would actually opt for those longer term options than 2 and 5 years that we're traditionally used to. I really do believe that. And like I said, I'm going to tie up some loose ends around getting some content in for that shortly. But I need to do a couple of emails and have a couple more meetings on that. Andy, what are you saying? Planning to get into a mortgage in a few years. Is it true that it's more difficult to get a mortgage for someone who is self-employed? As you know, I'm likely to be full locum after I get my RRL. It's not always difficult, mate. I think this is where you're going to need a proper mortgage professional, just to kind of help you, because sometimes it depends on how you're taking your salary, really, how you take your income, I should say. Because some people may be like me, where they'll take a salary which helps them manage their personal allowance, right? So 12,550, they might take just on the nose, or just under, or a little bit more. But then they may decide to then take most of their income in dividends. So this is where you would need like a proper mortgage advisor who can help you plan ahead. So look, who's going to accept a combination of salary and dividends, and what do you actually need to show on your self-assessment tax returns for the affordability numbers when it comes to you applying? So you've got some time still, mate, but this is, try and get ahead of it early. And working with an accountant, number one, will help you for sure, but also kind of get an understanding of, okay, multiples. And if you do know a mortgage advisor, speak to a mortgage advisor early doors, so you can kind of get an understanding of the blocks that you need to build, for sure, is what I would definitely say. But it's not impossible. People do get mortgages all the time being self-employed. And there are actually specialist lenders that will deal with those specifically. And that's why sometimes it's really, really good to work with an independent mortgage advisor, because they will know what providers will likely work with you over others, for example. Indefinitely to remain. Yes. Give me 1 second, guys. Where are we? All right, here's a question here. What do you think about money market funds, mutual funds versus ISA stocks and shares? I mean, look, they're not bad. I mean, money market funds, they will certainly play a role in your portfolio for sure. I mean, I think about tax efficiency first. So normally, in the pyramid of things, you're looking at tax efficiencies, your ISAs and all that kind of stuff. You would use those. I mean, some instances, can you have money market funds within an ISA? I haven't seen many areas where you can. But I've not advised and looked at this kind of stuff practically from an advice point of view for a number of years now. So, but I would generally normally go with ISAs first because tax free is always good. But money market funds can often offer a little bit less volatility, I would say, than what you might have if you went into a stocks and shares ISA. I wouldn't invest in weapons of war, no matter how much money I could make, but the devil will. Good night. Yeah, I would agree with you on that one, mate. I definitely have. I prefer not to invest in arms and armaments. That's for sure. I just don't. Um, and people will make a lot of money in those kind of things, and there will be index funds and ETFs that will have a small exposure to those kind of companies. And that's completely fine if that's what you want to do. It's just definitely not for me though. I just don't. But I know that people will because they feel like it should be the right thing for them to do. It's just a finance clinic, Kevin. That's all it is. CO, will the Bank of England hike rates again in November? The last time I checked, I was tracking this last week, there was a 31% chance. But the forecasts have been updated to say that actually we're probably at the peak of where interest rates are going to be. Again, these are just forecasts, so they are likely to be wrong. But there was a 31% chance last week that we would see further interest rate rises. I mean, cost of a barrel of crude has increased quite a bit. We won't see that come down the line for what, maybe a month or two. So it is possible that we start to see inflation tick up. I hope not. I hope not. But at the moment, Q4 inflation target is 4.9%. We're at 6.7. So there is some work to do. It's really going to be all dependent on what happens at the next CPI check. I mean, at the next CPI check, if inflation doesn't budge or it increases, that's when I'll be really curious about what they're going to do. Because will they really sit on their laurels and do nothing? I don't know how they would do it, but the message has been higher interest rates for longer. So they might just be like, actually, we don't do anything but keep interest rates at this level. Mate, I have no idea. I have no idea. Oh dear. I don't look, none of these lives here are to kind of make people feel stupid or anything like that. I'm just mindful that it's my live on my channel. And if someone, everyone can share their opinion. But when you start saying someone doesn't know what they're talking about, all that kind of stuff, that I'm not going to stand for. And I think I felt I was diplomatic because again, I'm not here to make anyone look stupid. That's not what this is about at all. Everyone has a valid opinion. But whilst you're sharing your valid opinion, try not to call me out or try to discredit me because that I'm definitely not going to have. And I think that the track record that I built here on this channel is not about selling, risk and get rich quick schemes or anything of the sort. Actually, it's quite contrary. And it's the reason why my channel isn't as large as it should be because I'm conscious that I never want to, cross that line. So when someone says, "Oh, I don't know what they're talking about," all that kind of stuff, that I don't like. That I'm not going to stand for. Good evening, Pete. Great book, mate. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, my friend. Thanks for reading the book as well. Appreciate it. It's good feedback on the book this evening. Thank you, guys. Really, really do. I literally, it's weird because obviously there was a lot of effort that went into the book, and it's been out since March now. And obviously, ever so often I'll go onto Amazon and see where it's doing, and it's still doing pretty well and stuff. But I've got copies here in the house, and I always look at it. But it's almost at that point where now it's there, and I know I've written it, and it's just there. But I have to remind myself it's my book; it's not somebody else's book. So when I get feedback like this, it's really, really nice. Thank you. Sounds like Pete, it's time. Okay, I've already done that one. And what's Anne saying? I agree. I would definitely go for a 20-year plus mortgage if there were no penalties for overpayment. Interesting. Trust me, I had a great conversation about a week ago, and that's the bit that I need to tie up. But those things are here now. And I think it's going to help a lot of first-time buyers and mortgage prisoners. So people who perhaps haven't been able to move on to a new fixed rate, they're stuck in standard variable land, is going to help those people for sure. Because the affordability criteria with the way it's all packaged and how the money is sourced, there's less risk on the lender side, which is very, very interesting. I don't fully understand that. That's the bit that I want to understand before we actually get into some content around it. But I think sentiments are definitely shifting around preparing more for the long term when it comes to our mortgage rates. Just think about it though. It makes sense. If the rate is perfect and you can afford it, you can really start to plan financially from a place of knowing for the long term. And this will be important if you have kids and you're trying to save for college fees or university fees or private school fees. It's crucial. And as you know, maybe get promotions and you earn more money, just having that fixed base cost for your mortgage is quite powerful. And like I said, the Americans have been doing it for years. I just don't know why we haven't here, But it could be that it's changing, which is good. Do you have any recommendations or know any mortgage advisors, Pete? Yes, I do. So if you message me, mate, I know we got Discord, so you can message me in there, or if you message me on Instagram, I can put you in front of one or two for sure. That will definitely be able to help you. But yeah, you should definitely have those conversations a little bit earlier, sooner rather than later, so you can kind of understand where you are. Because by the time, because also I know we spoke about tracking your income and what you have an expectancy of what your income is going to be. That's going to be quite powerful as well. So yeah, I can put you in touch with someone, mate. But message me on either on Discord or on IG, and I can hook you up. This might sound like a stupid question, but do you actually use a FA or do you just do it yourself? Where I need to, I will have one of my friends who's a financial advisor do stuff for me for sure. Because like even though I know quite a bit, I don't have access to some of the tools that they have access to. I definitely don't have access to the data streams that they'll have access to. So yeah, I would use one of my friends who's a financial advisor to do stuff for me. I have an economics question. What is the logic behind mandating inflation at 1 or 2%? Why not 0 to 5, 0.5%, etc.? Okay, so the reason for that is, and I don't have an economics degree, but the theory behind it is naturally prices will always go up on a year to year basis, and the thinking is that 2% is a good number where things don't get too difficult. It's a nice incremental increase to cover the cost of goods and services increasing, and it doesn't cause anyone too much pain. Now, if you had a 0.5%, you probably could still be okay. But I think when they run the data, typically historically, 2% is what they all aim at. We aim for 2%, the Americans aim for 2%. And I think it's because when you look at it from a historic point of view, 2% has always been that sweet spot where it doesn't cause too much, problems from an economic point of view. Households are able to contend with that as well. Whereas where we are right now at 6.7, it's pretty mad. And that represents the fact that, the economic situation globally also changes. Within that, you've also got, import, export, currency fluctuations, those kind of things. So it accounts a number of things. And 2% is that magic number that they think is just about right, just about manageable without causing people too much pain or economies too much pain. Yep, and Seal just said here, it avoids the risk of deflation as well. Kevin, pension cost says money market funds have got a lot more attractive over the last year. I think he said because the interest rates went, meaning money market funds have gone up. I think that's what he said. That is true to a certain extent, yes, because sometimes they are correlated to interest rates as well. I did have some money in a money market fund for a bit. But again, you've got to think about there are times when you would use it. Again, I would argue that if you're investing for the long term, what would be the point in you having money in the money market? Now, if you're kind of risk averse, you're a little bit worried, then yes, possibly. But if you're investing for 10, 15 years, it doesn't really make any difference because, again, you're taking that long-term view. And as long as you're taking a long-term view, the volatility in the moment shouldn't really matter. And yes, you still have to review your investment to make sure that it's okay and that you're on track and all that kind of stuff. But if you're investing for 10, 15 years, you're not going to get the same returns on a money market fund, I would argue, as you would do in a stocks to shares ISA or any investment driven vehicle. So money market funds will have a role to play. For example, if you needed money within the short term, you wanted to de-risk your portfolio, or you need income, maybe I could see a use for it for there. But for most people who follow this channel who may be looking to build wealth, you know, the stock market still offers, I would argue, a better outcome over the course of time than you would find in money market funds. Someone's saying here, CEO's just saying here, US jobs data, and I've just frozen. Bear me 1 second. Jobs data about 336,000. If the Fed hikes again, so will the Bank of England to avoid the pound depreciation further against the dollar. I would not be surprised about that either. Like I said, since the beginning of this, it's a lot of mirroring. What the States, though, what we do, we mirror. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. I've not really paid attention to the US job market numbers and whether that's actually an increase or not. I might be able to have a look on this right now, whether that's actually a good thing. Let me just see if I can find it on here quickly. Unemployment rate. So I need it on the forecast. They've moved the tab for forecast on here, which is slightly annoying. United States forecast. Here we go. Unemployment rate. Okay. I mean, they are predicting their unemployment rate in the States to actually go up. Currently, it's at 3.8%. It's predicted to go up actually from Q4, 4%, Q1 2024, 4.3, Q2, 4.5. So they're predicting that their unemployment rate is going to increase in the States. So that will be very, very interesting to see what actually happens with their decisions from a fiscal point of view as well. Very, very interesting. Someone's saying it. Joe Rogan, episode 2045. My favorite comedian Jimmy Carr. I'm sure you meant Rogan on there, mate. I will have a listen to that because I'm listening to the 33 Rules of Business and Life by Stephen Bartlett right now on Audible, and I'm looking for another book to listen to right after that. So if you guys have any recommendations of good books on Audible, by all means let me know. But this will be one that I'll put in the list to listen. Thanks, Kev. Keep up the good work, Pete. You have really helped me put my finances into perspective. Thank you. Cheers. Like I said, I can sit here and talk about all this stuff all day long, but ultimately you guys have to go and do the work. So, you should really give yourself a pat on the back because you've done the work. I've only just kind of provided information. So I think that's a two-way street. Well done. I'll buy your book. Oh, thank you for this. Cheers. You can scan the QR code right here in the corner right there. That will take you to Amazon. You can pick up the book there. I do signed copies as well. So if you want a signed copy, let me know. Message me on Instagram. I just ask you to pay for postage. That's it. And I'll sign it out to you, get it in the post. But you can also pick it up as an audiobook as well if you wanted to. Thank you. What advice would you give someone trying to buy first home at 50? Okay, cool. Right. Okay. So 50, your mortgage term is going to be very, very important. So the term that you're going to be able to borrow the money over. Now, I don't know your circumstances, so I don't know whether or not you have a large deposit or anything like that. But it is likely if you're going to have your mortgage terms go past your selected retirement date, so typically 65, 66, they will probably ask you what pension provisions you have. So that's just something to bear in mind. If you are buying at age 50, I would really try and focus on trying to get it down, paying that down as much as you possibly can. And I know that a lot of that is going to be dependent on your income. So affordability becomes a real question here, but there won't be anything stopping you from getting a mortgage for sure. It's just the term, because you're not going to be able to extend it over 30, 40 years, which will make the monthly payments cheaper, right? For you, you're probably going to have a truncated term. So you might have 15, 20 years, maybe max, right? The one that I'm talking about that is offering longer term mortgages actually would be a great thing for you because it doesn't really matter, right? So they might be able to offer a longer period of time. But with your truncated term, it means that your monthly payments are going to be higher. So affordability becomes a real thing here. So first and foremost, deposit. I don't know what deposit you have. Hopefully you've got a big one. Try and get as much as you possibly can into a deposit. Make sure you're at least preparing some data as well for, what pension provisions you have. So what I would be doing is try and find out what your state pension provisions will be. You can go onto .gov.uk, and if you type in pension forecast, it will give you your pension forecast, your state pension forecast. You pop in your national insurance number, some of your details, and it will tell you this is what you expected. That will help you. If you have worked at a number of businesses or companies in the past, try and find out what pension provisions you have. If you've got quite a bit, which you should hopefully have, just knowing exactly what you've got in terms of values. So company X, you've got 50 grand or whatever it might be, get those collated so that you can actually present it if they ask you for it, and make sure you're working with a decent mortgage broker. You can obviously go to the high street banks, no problem at all. But I think with the high street banks, they'll have their own criteria, and you could go to, say, I don't know, I'm just going to call out one, Halifax, for example, and they may say, well, actually, we will only lend to you up to age 65. Whereas if you went with a mortgage advisor, mortgage broker, they might be able to find one that will allow you to go up to age 70 in lieu of you having pension provisions, right? So speak to an independent mortgage advisor is what I would say. You may have to pay like a £300 fee up front for them to source structure, but it will be 300 quid or whatever the fee will be very well spent, because they know the lenders that will probably lend to you. And what that does, it means that you don't waste any time and you don't run the risk of having applications, be them soft or not, on your credit score that could potentially impact you. So those are just a few things there, mate. But if you need any help, if you're on Instagram or anything like that, just let me know, or just drop me an email. Hello at Peter Komalafe. So my name, hello at peterkomalafe.com. But good luck, mate. It's exciting time. All right, I'm just scanning. Bear me 1 second. I think I'm at the bottom of these. Am I at the bottom of these? I don't think I am. Whoa, 1 second. 1 second. Where did I just go? All right, I might not be able to get to all of these questions, guys. We're over an hour now, right now. So apologies if I haven't got to your question, but I'm just scanning and there just seems to be more and more popping up. I promise we will do another one of these next week. I might do it a little bit sooner. It depends what you guys think, really. I mean, I used to do them at like 9 o'clock on a Sunday. People loved it because kids were in bed. They could really tune in. But then I ran a poll very briefly and people said, like, maybe do it a little bit earlier, which is why I've been doing them earlier. But if you guys think 8 p.m., 9 p.m. is better, I don't want to do 9 because that means I get to 10 o'clock and then there's not enough time for me to chill out on a Sunday evening. So 8 is probably the latest I would do. But if you guys say, look, 8, 7 is good, then we can queue in and do one of those on a regular basis, on a weekly basis as well. But I'm not going to get to all of the questions that are here, unfortunately, because there's quite a few others that are popping in. But I just want to say thank you so much for all of the engagement. I do appreciate you. I do have something that I'm actually launching fairly soon. I'm so bad at talking about this stuff. I need to get way better. But I am going to be launching. I've had a lot of feedback around the book. A lot of people saying, yes, it's been very helpful for people who have gone through the exercises in the book. I have had some feedback from people saying it would be great if you did a book club. So if you actually did a book club that walks people through all of the exercises in the book. I've been waiting for one tool to be built for me. That's now done. I need to check it next week. And I'll be launching a book club in about maybe 2 or 3 weeks' time. And essentially it's going to be 6 weeks. And the idea is I take you through all of the principles, all of the practical elements in the book and some, and we will sort out each element of the formula. So budgeting, we're going to lock that down. How to structure, debt, to manage debt, we're going to lock all of that down. We're going to give you a really nice overview of the investing and getting started. It will include my investment course for free, which I don't talk about here too much, but there is an investment course available. It's going to also look at credit scores, and there's going to be weekly tasks for people to do through the 6-week period, and success is dependent on doing those tasks. Everything's set up. It's just not ready just yet, but that will be launching in about 2, maybe 3 weeks time. So once I got a little bit more information about that, and it's all structured and set up properly, I'll talk a little bit more about it on a live or maybe one of the videos. I might run a brief ad break just to give people the lowdown, but that will be coming fairly shortly. But I appreciate every single one of you guys. Thank you so much for being here with me. And look, whatever you're doing this week, by the way, just one more thing. If you are following me on Instagram, I do have a channel on Instagram now. So if you go onto my profile, you can click, it's called the Insiders Club. I just drop voice notes in there, thoughts in there on a regular basis. So join that if you haven't already. It's really, really cool. But I appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy the week to come. Cheers.
Yeah. Surprise, a little different than you're used to. Yeah. Dropping these bars on YouTube, knowledge I introduce you. Yeah. We chasing this money like it's the prize, it's the voodoo. Fugazi, it's just a lie we buying into. We need some cars on deck. Get the rollies, get the Moe, all the Mars on deck. We got the traders, got the picture with the Bentley in Dubai. Are you dripping in designer, looking fly? On the bombardier, sipping on the wine. Broke man, we broke. Where's the fun in being broke? Stocks and bonds get you yo. That's what I'm teaching these folks. I see that smoke, see them choke. Getting coke. While I'm researching these stocks, buying coke. 20 months on the channel, million people taking note. I got a warrant for Buffet. I'm coming for his vote.